Okay, so now I'm gonna go over lipids. Lipids are pretty easy. They're the one class of large biological molecules that don't form polymers. They're just a certain structure, which I'll go over for a second. They have little to no affinity for water because it's mostly just carbon and hydrogen. It's like pretty much nothing else. They're hydrophobic because they're non-polar. Like I said, they're just a bunch of hydrogen and carbon. And the most important lipids are fats, phospholipids, and steroids, which I'll go over in like 1 second. Okay, so the way lipids are formed, it's a glycerol molecule, and each glycerol branch has a OH, and the OH just lines up with a fatty acid which is just a long hydrocarbon chain with the acid thing at the end. And like remember, the denaturization reaction, I mean dehydration reaction, H and OH go away, and then that leaves something to bond with. So here you have the OH and the H. The H2O goes away, and the O can bond with the C, and that's just one long chain, and that happens 3 times for each of the OHs. So that's why lipids are called triglycerides, because there's 3 fatty acids and 1 glycerol. No, my bad. They called it triacylglycerol. Forgive me. And this is a complete fatty acid, as you can see. It's non-polar because it's just a bunch of hydrogen carbons. Um, the linkage between the glycerol and the fatty acid, they call it ester linkage, because if you remember from chemistry, if you did OChem, this OCO is called ester, but I'm sure you don't need to know the details about that. Okay, so there's 2 types of fats. There's saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Saturated are all single bonds. There's no double bonds in the fatty acids, and so um, they can get really, really close together, and that's why they're solid in room temperature, because like it's like a jigsaw piece. They just fit together really quick, really closely, and saturated fats are usually seen as bad for you because they can get stuck in your blood vessels because they're solid. But unsaturated fats, they're liquids. Unsaturated means that there's double bonds inside the fatty acids, like this one right here. Um, this this double bond causes like a kink, a bend in the structure, and so it's not a jigsaw piece anymore. They can't fit together as closely, and that's why they're liquids at room temperature, unsaturated fats. So all your liquid oils, your corn oil, canola oil, those are all unsaturated. All your butter, lard, and that stuff, it's all saturated. And this is cis double bonding, and I'm gonna go over cis and trans in a second. Like I said, a diet rich in saturated fats leads through deposits in your blood cells, blah blah blah. Okay, what's worse for you than unsaturated? I mean, the bad part about unsaturated fats are if they're trans fats. Like I said, there's cis double bonds and trans double bonds, and if the double bond's a cis double bond, it's like relatively okay, but the trans double bond, nuh-uh. Um, so a cis double bond is when the hydrogens attached to the carbons are in the same direction. As you can see, the chain goes like this, it comes through here, the double bonds here, and the hydrogens are on one side. But in a trans bond, the H's are on opposite sides, and the chain goes in like a step. I don't know specifically why this is bad, just know that trans means bad. Bad shit. Okay, and this is a really important form of a lipid. It's a phospholipid. This picture right here. Let me zoom out a little so you can see. It's basically, here is your glycerol with all your fatty acids, and instead of the third fatty acid, we have a phosphate group. And this phosphate group creates a charge, so the top of it, the head of this molecule, is attracted to water, but the tail, since it's just carbon and hydrogen, not attracted to water. So remember, hydrophilic head, hydrophobic tail. And as you can see, this is the fatty acid, this is the glycerol phosphate, and this is choline. I mean, that's just an add-on that you don't really need to know. This is really important in cell membranes. It determines like what goes in, what doesn't, and we'll go over that in the next few chapters. But know the phospholipid. And another major form of lipids are steroids, which are characterized by instead of having carbon chains, there's carbon rings. And cholesterol is an important steroid that's part of our cell membranes, but too much cholesterol is bad. And this is how steroids look. I'm sure you don't need to know like the super details about it, but just know what they